Okay, thank you. Today I'm going to be talking about my project, Chutes and Ladders, as I've deemed it. It's an exciting up and down game for fish. My name is Joe Spooner. I work for the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission under the Rivers and Streams program in the Fisheries Division, and I'm currently a graduate student at the University of Nebraska of Lincoln. And this is just a look into a preliminary study that we did leading into my current project that I started this fall at the university. So this is the real Chutes and Ladders game that we'll be playing today. And it's just ladders attached to culverts with drops on them. So what's the problem that we're looking at? We are going to be looking at stream fragmentation as the problem. Pictured from left to right are 3 different culverts in the state of Nebraska with varying levels of drop from 1 foot to 2 foot to 4 foot drops respectively. And these can have an effect on fish movement up and downstream as they move through the system. So I just wanted to put this model up. Basically, fish move. There are lots of studies out there on fish movement on our streams, and they have different reasonings for needing to move. And this model shows just that they need to have that movement to be able to spawn, to be able to find food, and to be able to find refuge from environmental conditions such as temperatures and high flows that can hinder their growth. So this is just an example of a drop culvert system that we sampled. I'll get in a little bit more on the data a little bit later. Basically, I just wanted to throw this up showing that we sampled 460 total fish below this culvert in a stretch of stream with 9 different species. One species I would like to note is the flathead chub. We had 359 flathead chubs sampled in a 150-meter stretch. That's an incredible amount of flathead chubs. And we probably missed just that many netting them. There were so many. And then we go and we sample above this culvert in the same stretch of stream, 150 meters, and we only sample 7 total fish with 2 species. So our objectives that we determined were to complete a site survey, to determine the population difference between above and below culvert drops, and 2, determine the native fish usage of fish ladders installed on these culverts. So I'm going to go a little bit into objective 1 first. So this is a map of the study area that we did this short project on. It's in north central Nebraska on the Niobrara River corridor on a few select tributaries. And a little bit about this map, the flags denote where we put ladders on culverts for the second part of the question. And the colors, the blue means that they had a smaller hang height, and the green means they had a middle-sized hang height, and the red means that they had a larger hang height. So as we move down the system, we start to get bigger drops in these culverts. So a little bit into our methods on how we sampled. We completed fish surveys on all 6 sites that were listed on that map: Bone Creek Tributary, Willow Creek, Sandraw Creek, Oak Creek, and Cub Creek. And that's kind of moving down the, further down as I listed those. So a little bit on the methods. We start below on this diagram here, and we sample a standard 40 times stream width upstream to the pool. And we put a block net in between below and the pool so that we didn't push fish into the pool. We wanted to separate out the pool because it's a little bit different habitat compared to because of the culvert drop. So then we sampled the pool, and then we sampled above the culvert. So I just wanted to define hang height. This is just a little diagram. Basically, hang height is a distance between the top of the stream surface and the distance the bottom of the culvert there. So a little bit into the results that we had. I want to explain these graphs just a little bit here. Some things you're going to see on multiple graphs. The arrows to the right-hand side are just there as a visual so that you guys can visualize where I'm at in these systems. As I move through, I have Bone Creek circled and Bone Trib. Those were the higher up in the upper watershed, and they had the lowest drop. And then Sandra and Willow Creek had a little bit more of a drop, and they're a little bit farther down the system, followed by Cub Creek and Oak Creek, which had those largest drops and the largest arrows. So that will change as I go through more slides. So just watch those arrows. They'll kind of tell you where I'm talking about. And so this first graph is just a proportion of catch on the culvert drop sites. This is all 6 sites listed that we sampled for the fish population surveys. And this is basically just a proportion of catch rate. I just wanted to compare above the culvert, the pool, and below the culvert itself, just to kind of get an idea of where those fish are. And it goes up to 100%, obviously. And the green is above, the salmon colored is pool, and orange is below. And that trend will kind of go through all my other graphs. One thing to note, Cub Creek, we did not sample below due to its proximity to the Niobrara River. Basically, the culvert comes out into a pool and then is immediately the Niobrara River down below. So that was not sampled there. Otherwise, just showing here that most of our fish, especially as you move down to those higher drops, are found below that culvert in proportion to what we sampled above. So into our next graphs, I wanted to break each site down by species captured for a catch rate on fish per 1 meter. And just an example, brassy minnows on the Bone Creek pool, it goes all the way up to the 4. And so that what that means is we would expect to find 4 brassy minnows per 1 meter sampled with these graphs. So I just wanted to define that a little bit. And once again, we're up higher up in the watershed a little bit with a little bit lesser drop here, which I have listed as 9 inches up top. So I listed that as well. But the one thing I wanted to note is some of our tier species, northern pearl dace are a tier 2 species, and then Plains top minnow are a tier 1 species legacy. And the northern red belly and fine scale hybrids, due to being early in my career, we have a hard time identifying between those two, and they may be hybrids at this point, but genetics are needed to confirm or deny that. So we just have them listed as family species, Chrysomus for right now. So every time you see that, it's basically ID'd down to the family. And one thing I would just like you to take from this graph is just the fact that most of those species we have similar species between all 3 sites, but you tend to see a little bit lower numbers above than below, between the pool and below. So we'll move on to our next site. Once again, just a 9-inch hang height. I just wanted to reiterate the tier species again: northern pearl dace, the Chrysomus, and the Plains top minnows. So same tier species at a different site. Another thing to note is our x-axis does change as I change graphs. So before it went up to 4, this one only goes up to 1.5. So it's about half the number of fish that we collected from the first site. So that will change. And creek chubs and white suckers seem to be extremely high here. This could be due to the fact that it's only a 9-inch drop, and they could be able to actually make that jump based on their swimming abilities. So Willow Creek was our first site down, a little bit higher of a drop, a 2-foot drop on this one. One thing to note is it only goes up to 0.4 on the catch rates. We caught very few fish here, but of the fish we did catch, we sampled the Chrysomus and the Plains top minnows, and actually black-nosed dace as well, which is also another tier 2 species here in Nebraska. But again, you see that general, there's a few less fish above than below. Sandra, we sampled northern pearl dace, northern red belly dace. We ID'd some of those out, and then the Chrysomus species. And then Oak Creek, this is where we start getting into our larger drops. This one had a 4-foot 3-inch drop, And one thing to note here is the x-axis goes up to 4 fish per meter, which this was that site that I showed you earlier with the 359 flathead chubs. So below and in the pool, there were an extremely high number of flathead chubs, and flathead chubs need to be able to make runs up these tributaries for their life history for spawning purposes. So this just kind of shows that there is a barrier there that they need to address. Cub Creek, once again, just a reminder, we did not sample below due to proximity to the Niobrara River, but this one goes all the way up to 20 because of the sand shiner. Basically, the pool, like I said, was right off the Niobrara River, so that is very conducive for sand shiner habitat. They love to go into those pools and hang out. It's slower slack water, and it kind of gives them a break from the main stem river. So, but once again, we hardly captured any fish. I think we captured 5 total fish above. And we did sample a few flathead chubs in the pool of that system as well. So going on to objective 2, determine the native fish usage of fish ladders installed on culverts. So these are the fish ladders that we installed on these culverts. These were made by John Lorenzen of South Dakota State University. His thesis project was developing these ladders. He developed 3 models and tested them to see which would provide the best fish movement. And he found that this ladder design provided the best fish movement opportunity. So we took this ladder design and we decided to try it on a few of these culverts for a 1-week time stint. They connect to the culvert with a pin, and pictured to the right, the pin slides through and 3 bolts essentially hold this ladder onto the culvert. So the methods for this portion, we installed traps that I designed on top of these fish ladders. They essentially sit right into the fish ladder. So no fish can get in the trap unless they physically go up the ladder. On 3 sites, once again, Bone Creek, Willow Creek, and Oak Creek. I'll pull up the map again just to kind of show you the area. The flags denote where the ladders were. So we kind of chose 3 different drop tiers to put these on, just to kind of get an idea of if we would see fish move within 1 week. So into a little bit on the results. Bone Creek tributary, we installed the ladder for 4 net nights, and we actually captured 93 fish. That was incredible compared to what I was thinking we would get in a 1-week time period. The fish size range, we captured fish from 70 millimeters to 330 millimeters. So I just wanted to put that up there just to show that there are different size fish using this ladder. They're not all the same size. Pictured to the left is the ladder installed on the culvert. That is the biggest culvert I have ever seen in my life. I am there to scale. You can see the trap installed on top of the fish ladder there that they swim into. And pictured to the right, sorry about the quality of the photo. It was kind of hard to get a good photo of that, but that's 1 net night worth of fish. Basically, we pull those traps every 24 hours and check to see if there was fish. And there was a lot of fish, mostly white suckers in that picture there. So a little bit on the results of that. Net nights is on the x-axis, and the number of fish captured is on the y-axis. I do have a double y-axis with discharge and CFS. Discharge is the amount of water coming through the system at a given time. And I wanted to put that on there just because between net night 2 and net night 3, we happen to have a 2-inch rain event come through all 3 of those systems. So it was just kind of neat to note that and to see if, maybe that sparked some of the movement. The zeros denote no fish captured when they fished, and the graphs are just stacked bar graphs. So this is just the total amount of fish that we caught per net night. So net night 3 on Bone Creek captured 70 fish, and net night 4 captured about 20 fish, but we actually had 4 species. So we had some good species diversity come up that ladder during that time. Willow Creek, we fished for 4 net nights. Only 3 fish were captured, but once again, Willow Creek had a lot lower capture rate of total fish when we sampled. Had that 0.4, so there weren't too many fish there to begin with. So seeing 3 was a win. Fish size range again, 60 to 70 millimeters. Picture to the left is the ladder installed on the actual culvert, and pictured to the right are 2 of the fish that we caught. The top one is actually a western black-nosed dace. So that was pretty neat to see. We did have a tier species move up. And then the creek chub pictured below. So a little bit on that graph. You can start to see, since we moved down the system a little bit, this is a little bit further down, there's a little bit more input. You start to see that discharge creep up. So it almost multiplied by 6 times the amount of water coming through. After pulling the top net, I was honestly surprised we didn't have any fish move in during that 3rd net night, but it might be because of too much water coming through that they didn't want to move at that point. And Oak Creek, unfortunately, we only fished for 1 net night and no fish were captured. The rain event was a little too much for a lower site. Pictured to the left is what the ladder looked like when we finally did get it on the site. And pictured to the right is the day after the rain event. And you can just kind of see how much water is coming through that site. You can't see it, but the ladder still did remain attached. There's just too much water going over it to physically see it. But you can see it flip my trap up and over, and the trap still stayed there as well for a 3-day period of that water coming through until we could pull the ladder out of there. So this is just essentially just the discharge that came through that system after that rain event. So as you can see, we're down lower in the system, so you have a little bit more discharge to start out with, and it peaks up there at 20 CFS after that rain event came through. So the preliminary findings from just the short stint project, once again, was less fish were observed above culverts with increased drop height distance, and the ladders provided an opportunity for native fish to move upstream. So this is leading into my graduate research a little bit. I started this fall, and currently I'm looking at evaluating transition probabilities on residing native species while estimating survival and recapture probabilities. A little bit on transition probabilities. It's just the percentage that a fish will move either up or downstream from a barrier. So we can break that down by species and kind of look at what affects each, we had different drops, what each drop can do to those certain fish species. And we can hopefully see a gradient where we maybe need to put a ladder to help those fish out a little bit. And then evaluating seasonal fish usage of ladders on 3 upper watershed perch culverts. So this would be just kind of doing what I already did with the traps, just getting an idea of running them all throughout the spring and the summer to see if there's a better time of when these fish would prefer to move, to kind of denote when we can put these ladders on to get those fish to move up the system. And lastly, I just wanted to put some fish pictures in because everybody likes fish pictures. These were all fish that we sampled on all the sites that we did physically there. I just wanted to show how hard these fish can be to identify during some points. So top picture is the pearl dace. They have a little bit larger scales compared to the bottom 2 fish, which are your fine scale dace and your northern red belly dace respectively. And I chose pictures where they're all colored up because that's, it kind of brings out, if they're not colored up, it can get hard to tell them apart, especially these next fish. The western black-nosed dace is pictured above, and the long-nosed dace is pictured below. If they're not all colored up, I put that bottom picture in to show the bottom of their lips. That is how we have to tell them apart if they're if they don't have any color on them. These 2 specimens had coloration to them, which, it really brought them out. And it was nice to be able to see that. When those fish are all 20 millimeters and they don't have any color to them, they can get hard to identify. So the long-nosed dace kind of looks like it's going to a party. It has some Their coloration is based around the lips and the bases of the fins, where the Western black-nosed gaze has that nice, pretty red stripe going down the center of the body there. And then here's the flathead chub and the plains top minnow. Once again, these are all tier species, and I just wanted to show pictures of them there. And with that, I would like to give special thanks to Nebraska Game Park Commission, my coworkers that helped me put the ladders in and choose sites, Zach, Alex, Thad, Scott, and Cassidy, the University of Nebraska Lincoln, Dr. John Spurgeon, my advisor, multiple landowners for the property access to put these ladders on, John Lorenzen of South Dakota State University for designing the ladders, and lastly, the Nebraska Environmental Trust for funding the purchase of the ladders that we put on. And with that, I will take any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. We stopped the recording here.